Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Reflections on Liber Cordis Scincti Serpente, vel 65 subfigura Adonai. The Book of the Heart Girt with the Serpent, chapter 1, verses 56 through 65. Verse 56. And Adonai said, the strong brown reaper swept his swath and rejoiced. The wise man counted his muscles and pondered and understood not and was sad. Reap thou and rejoice. This notion of the absolute involves a transition from traditional metaphysical speculation to a method of self-inquiry that is practical and historical. Rather than transcending historical conditions, the Thelemic adept seeks to reconcile the contradictions of their contextual situation. They do not ascend from the world. They are instead a conduit for the ecstatic energies of the divine spirit to erupt into the world, facilitating its alchemical transmutation, both personally and politically. 57. Then was the adept glad and lifted his arm. Lo, an earthquake and plague and terror on the earth, a casting down of them that sate in high places, a famine upon the multitude. Thelema therefore has a fundamentally social revolutionary quality, which appears threatening to the vulgar and uninformed. Also, as with all use of apocalyptic imagery in the Holy Books, and especially in the Book of the Law, the destruction and violence described should be read as a metaphor for the process of alchemical transformation, which involves a stage of putrefaction, or of the decay and dissolution of old form so that new forms can emerge. This applies in both a personal and an interpersonal context. 58. And the grape fell ripe and rich into his mouth. As in the Islamic Sufi tradition, the fermentation of wine and its resultant ability to induce intoxication serves as a metaphor for mystical and magical attainment. The harvesting of the vintage represents practice, and the treading of the winepress is the stage of putrefaction, while the drunkenness is the attainment of ecstasy. In both drinking and magic, responsible behavior is required to get the best results. 59. Stained is the purple of thy mouth, O brilliant one, with the white glory of the lips of Adonai. As in verse 54, the color white symbolizes Horus, the spiritual life of which death is but the prequel. Purple is also the color of Yesod, corresponding to the Nefesh, which is intoxicated by the descent of Neshama Adonai, just as is the Ruach, for the brilliant one is the unity of self-consciousness symbolized by the solar radiance of Tiferet. The goal is for the Nefesh to be stained by Neshama and impregnated with the purposes of the true will, thus spiritually communicated. Thereby the unconscious of the magician can be reprogrammed and thereby redirected away from sending self-defeating impulses to the Ruach, implanted by trauma and addictive behaviors. This is like the function of the Freudian superego as censor of the unconscious, albeit the magical conception is not psychologically reductive, nor limited by the prudish and Puritan bounds of traditional bourgeois mores. 60. The foam of the grape is like the storm upon the sea. The ships tremble and shudder. The shipmaster is afraid. As the lux of Neshama descends, its intoxication inflames all the phenomenal sheaths of the self. When the light descends, it illuminates everything, says Anne Davies, Paul Foster Case's student and successor. The Holy Book likens illumination to a storm upon the sea, with the self as a ship that may indeed tremble and shudder, like the Quakers moved by their communion with the inner light. It is uncanny and unsettling, triggering our neuroses and complexes while also empowering our deepest and most authentic self-expression. The shipmaster is the Ruach, which may well be afraid, yet it must steer wisely through the storm lest it be wrecked, and the adventure of initiation come to a premature conclusion. Yet there may be means of rescue, as in the allegory of Robinson Crusoe. 61. That is thy drunkenness, O Holy One, and the winds whirl away the soul of the scribe into the happy haven. The soul of the scribe is the perspective of the Ruach, as distinct from that of VVVVV above the abyss. Like the wise shipmaster of the preceding verse, they skillfully tack and sail with the winds, the storm of illumination, until they come to the safe harbor of the happy haven. 62. O Lord God, let the haven be cast down by the fury of the storm. Let the foam of the grape tincture my soul with thy light. Yet this is not enough. The haven must in turn be cast down, so that the lux may fully work its way into every nook and cranny of the self. The magician, though yet rested and refreshed, must again sail forth into the face of the storm and brave the ever-ongoing adventure of the great work. Eventually, not only the nephesh shall be stained with the grape tincture of illumination, as alluded to in verse 59, but the Ruach as well shall receive the tincture of initiation. 63. Bacchus grew old and was Silenus. Pan was ever Pan forever and evermore throughout the aeons. Bacchus is Dionysus, the god of wine. The cautionary point here is the same as in the following verse. The explicit ecstasy of intoxication, through drugs or by other means, comes and goes, whether through drugs or yogic concentration or erotic invocation or visionary sublimity or by countless other means available to the adept. Yet one cannot stay high forever. Life inevitably has its ups and downs. Existence is a dialectical interplay of systole and diastole. True wisdom is to understand that the trajectory of the true will encompasses all these moments of experience. Pan is the all, the inclusive whole of reality, which, like the Hegelian spiritual notion, is the totality that includes and comprehends its own negation within itself. 64. Intoxicate the inmost, O my lover, not the outermost. This is a further acknowledgement that the intoxication described is a metaphor for the inner attainment of the Gnostic lux. Mere outer inebriation of the physical body is, in and of itself, insufficient to achieve enlightenment. Indeed, the addictive consumption of drugs and alcohol can lead to loss of the self-awareness sought in magic and surrender to the klephotic control of the nephesh in isolation from the intuition of neshama. This is to be avoided in magic. 65. So was it ever the same. I have aimed at the peeled wand of my God, and I have hit. Yea, I have hit. This first chapter of the Holy Book concludes with an affirmation of the attainment of the knowledge and conversation of the Holy Guardian Angel. The peeled wand is the divine phallus, and so there's a further queer sex magical allusion here as well. There is success. Love is the law, love under will.